Discover the incredible twist, how a homeless maiden transformed an elderly mountain man's hidden legacy. Grace gripped the steering wheel of her old sedan, the rough texture of the fabric grounding her in the present, momentarily drowning out the haunting echoes of her family's laughter. The sun rose over the Appalachian Mountains, a stark contrast to the shadows that loomed in her heart. Each day was filled with an agonizing routine, waking up cramped in the front seat, shrouded in the scent of stale coffee and worry. The chilling realization that college, laughter, and even simple companionship felt like remnants of a different lifetime gnawed at her insides. She was a lost soul, navigating the fine line between survival and despair. Hunger clawed at her stomach as she rummaged through the small assortment of granola bars that served as her meager breakfast. Isolation wrapped around her like an ailing blanket, a daily reminder that her dreams of becoming a teacher remained painfully out of reach. Each time she glanced at the textbooks wedged between the back seats, a wave of longing washed over her. Where would she be now if her life hadn't spiraled into this darkness? She forced a determined breath, willing herself to shake off the doubt, and clung desperately to the hope of returning to her studies, of reclaiming the narrative that fate had stripped from her grasp. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of yesterday crept back in, intensifying her internal conflict as she recalled the brief period when she had companions, family dinners filled with laughter, spontaneous road trips, and dreams whispered late into the night. Memories played in her mind like a cruel film reel. How had everything changed? A sulking ache tightened her chest with the fear that she might never dig her way out of this pit. The very thought curled her fingers around the wheel harder, and she struggled between what was real and what could be again. Meanwhile, the world around her ticked on, oblivious to her pain. She caught whispers of townsfolk passing by her car, their eyes filled with judgment and pity. Another scorned homeless girl, they must think. Just last week, as she rummaged through a nearby dumpster to salvage food, the disdain etched on their faces twisted her stomach. Did they even understand? Could they fathom the yearning to belong again, to be seen beyond the ragged edges of her existence? Panic trickled down her spine like cold water. She was losing her spark, a flickering flame in a tempest of emotions. The woods beckoned, a blend of comforting pines and ominous whispers. Grace yearned to escape her constraints, to disappear into those serene green shadows, yet dread held her captive. What if she found solace but lost herself further? As her heart raced, she remembered fragments of her mother's voice encouraging her to give it all she had. She had to fight, for her dreams, for herself. But fear clashed with determination. What if her endeavor only led to deeper isolation? Time marched on, carrying with it the burden of unanswered questions that left her restless. The road ahead was tangled and uncertain, yet a flicker of resolve sparked in her chest, urging her to take the leap. Grace squeezed her eyes shut, wondering if this flirtation with hope was delusion in disguise. As the car idled beneath the towering pines, she sensed the approaching storm, both outside and within. Would the courage to believe in something greater than her anguish be enough to push her through the fog of despair? And would fate lead her to the answers she sought, or deeper into the shadows? The mountains whispered their secrets, and with them an unyielding tug of destiny began to pull at her heart. Grace exhaled slowly, allowing the weight of her thoughts to dissipate as she blinked away the haze of uncertainty. The shadows danced outside, merging with the vibrant green of the forest, igniting something deep within her, a flicker of determination that had long laid dormant. It was time to reclaim her narrative, time to shift from passive existence to active pursuit. The comforting embrace of the woods could offer sanctuary, but that sanctuary would only matter if she dared to venture into it. With steady hands, she turned off the engine, the silence settling around her like an anticipation. Should she face the vast unknown ahead? The textbooks in her back seat felt heavier with the all-too-familiar weight of her dreams. They now represented not just knowledge, but a gateway to the future she could still reach. This wasn't merely a decision of escape, it was an opportunity for reinvention. Grace opened the door and stepped into the soft undergrowth, aware that each footfall was a declaration of intent. The forest air filled her lungs, carrying with it the earthy scent of moss and a sense of possibility. She needed to rejuvenate her spirit through connection, both with nature and herself, and that required bringing her aspirations to the forefront of her mind. Each step forward became a rhythm, a mantra echoing her resolve. I will confront my fears. As she wandered deeper, she contemplated the solitude of the mountains. It could serve as an arena for reflection or a breeding ground for isolation. The haunting memories of her past beckoned her to retreat, whispering doubts of whether she was capable of the change she sought. Was she merely a ghost in this expansive wilderness, forever haunted by her choices? But another thought emerged, one that challenged the former, a revelation. Perhaps the strength she'd ignored was nestled within her all along. Her fingers grazed the rough bark of a nearby tree, and in that moment she felt a spark, a sense of inherited resilience akin to the beings that flourished in this wilderness. She wasn't alone. Lessons whispered through the leaves, as if nature itself understood the weight of her struggle. Grace realized that confronting her demons didn't mean succumbing to them, it meant acknowledging their presence and learning to thrive regardless. With this newfound awareness, she began envisioning a plan. How could she weave her dreams into the fabric of her current reality? Teaching was her calling, its essence shimmering in the corners of her mind. But how to return to that path? As she walked, she plotted the steps she could take, reaching out to local schools, volunteering, or even tutoring kids who needed help along their own paths. A single tree stood resolutely before her, its branches reaching like arms toward the sky. Inspired, she stilled, absorbing the strength in its stance. People might see her as just another homeless girl, but she refused to remain limited by their perspective. There was power in redefining her identity, and Grace vowed to become synonymous with possibility. Gradually, the apprehension that had clenched her heart began to release its grip. Instead, a burgeoning excitement enveloped her as she recognized she had the ability to shape her story. Every step she took today was a step toward that first class she dreamed of teaching, an initiative to embrace learning and ignite passion in others, the passion she once had. But as invigorating as this revelation felt, doubts lingered just beyond the edge of her mind. What if the world wasn't ready to embrace her dreams? What if her past permanently shadowed her every effort? The thought prickled her optimism, a haunting echo she couldn't ignore. Fingers clenched at her side, Grace paused at the edge of a clearing, her heart racing. There, in the silence of the still air and rustling leaves, lay an undeniable crossroads. Behind her was a familiar past, ahead an uncertain yet enticing future. The choice sat heavy within her. Would she confront those fears standing in her way, or allow them to dictate the course her life would take? It was then, as the sun filtered through the trees, illuminating the path ahead, that she realized she was more than a product of her circumstances. She was the author of her own tale, and it was time to write the next chapter of her life with uncompromising boldness. The moment had come for Grace to forge ahead into the unknown, ready to face not only the darkness, but the dawning light of her potential. What awaited her beyond the trees? Would she find the courage to confront not just her fears, but also the people from her past who had made her doubt? The answers swirled just out of reach, enticing her forward with a surge of anticipation, propelling her deeper into the wilderness of her soul. Grace took a deep breath as she stepped through the clearing, the sunlight cascading down like a golden curtain. The juxtaposition of light and shadow mirrored the conflict within her, not just the dark memories she carried, but the vibrant dreams she had yet to fulfill. Each moment spent in the embrace of the forest intensified her resolve. She was not merely seeking refuge, but a launching pad into her new life. With every stride, Grace worked to silence the whispers of doubt that followed her like shadows. What if they were right? What if she was deluding herself into thinking she could step back into a world of aspiration and achievement? The thought made her stomach tighten, but she fought against it, focusing instead on the vivid images of what teaching could mean for her and for her future students. Those young minds were waiting for someone to spark the curiosity, and she could be that light. Navigating further into the woods, Grace utilized the time to formulate actionable steps. She would start small, reach out to local schools, offer her time volunteering, cultivate relationships with children who needed guidance. The plan was becoming more than just a dream. With a pencil and a scrap of paper she always carried, she began outlining her strategy, the logistics swirling around her thoughts. What subjects could she teach? What kind of creative projects could she undertake to captivate young minds? The possibilities opened up like petals of a blooming flower. The rustle of leaves startled her from her reverie. A small rabbit emerged, hesitating at first before darting across her path. It served as a reminder: life is full of unexpected turns, and both fear and courage can exist side by side. She smiled, feeling the warmth of hope suffusing her heart. The path ahead remained uncertain, but her feet were firmly planted, grounding her in the present. Yet the deeper Grace ventured into the thicket, the more she was confronted by her internal adversaries. Images of her past crowded her mind like storm clouds: the dismissive looks from former colleagues, the disbelieving voices that heaped judgment upon her for her choices. An uprising of indignation bloomed within her. How dare they encapsulate her story within the narrow confines of their expectations? With the sun arching higher, casting shadows in dramatic patterns, Grace paused before a sturdy oak tree. "I am not defined by those perceptions," she declared quietly, her voice a mere whisper among the leaves. Strength swelled within her as she imagined walking into a classroom filled with eager faces, imparting every ounce of knowledge and passion she held, witnessing their growth mirrored with her own. Was she willing to confront those who had turned their backs on her, friends, family, and the educators she once revered? The notion simmered, revealing itself as both an anxiety and a daunting excrescence of her journey. If she wanted to fully reclaim her identity, she would have to face the ghosts of her past without flinching. She picked up her pace, invigorated by the impending choice that loomed on the horizon. The decision would not come easy. It would demand a fierce confrontation of her own vulnerabilities. But what she risked losing, she also had the opportunity to gain: a sense of belonging once more, both in the community and in her own skin. As the terrain shifted, the air thick with impending rain, Grace's heart raced at the thought of her first steps back into society. Would she dare? The gathering clouds above threatened to pour, mirroring the tumult of emotions churning within her. In that moment of uncertainty, she found companionship in resolve. The opportunity awaited, but it required her to absorb the weight of her fears to truly transcend them. But just as she felt the weight of her newfound determination solidifying, a voice from the underbrush interrupted her thoughts. "You look lost, girl." The statement hung in the air, heavy with unexpected implications. Who dared to intrude on her moment of clarity? As the figure emerged, Grace braced herself for whatever revelation or confrontation awaited her. The wilderness was testing her resolve, and the true adventure had only just begun. Grace's heart quickened at the sight before her. A disheveled figure emerged from the dense greenery, clothes tattered and feet bare, yet his presence commanded attention. His face, weathered by time and hardship, held an enigmatic expression, as if he knew more than he revealed. The unkempt hair framed his striking blue eyes, which peered into Grace with an unsettling intensity. "Who are you?" she managed. The confidence in her voice wavered under scrutiny. "Just a wanderer," he replied, his tone measured yet inviting. "Names don't matter here in the woods. What matters is why you're here." She contemplated his words, feeling the weight of her mission pressing upon her. It was easy to think of herself as a mere teacher, but the deeper purpose crystallized in her mind. She was there to reclaim her identity, her passion, a journey far beyond the classroom walls. The man remained silent, watching her as if waiting for her to unravel her own mystery. The stillness became heavy. She could sense every doubt still lurking within her, like shadows dancing just out of sight. "I want to teach," she blurted with surprising fervor. "I want to inspire children, help them grow, but I'm afraid of failing again." His expression softened slightly, revealing an understanding gaze. "We all carry our fears like burdens, but the question is, what are you willing to release?" Grace's mind wandered back to the dismissive voices of her past. The memories ignited an inner fire, a desire to dismantle the perception that her worth was defined by others. "I want to confront them," she admitted, her pulse racing. "I want to show them who I am." He nodded slowly, as if this declaration anchored something in him. "Then, face it. You step back into the world not seeking their acceptance, but to claim your own. You owe it to yourself to conquer it." A swell of determination surged within her, yet uncertainty threaded through it. The idea of facing those ghosts terrified her. Would they recognize her transformation? Would they even care? "What if they judge me again?" Grace's voice trembled slightly, but deep down she questioned whether their opinions would ever truly matter. "Then they will. Judgment is part of the human experience. What you must learn is to hold your place despite it." He stepped closer, the sincerity in his eyes piercing through her doubts. "You are not just a teacher. You are a vessel of knowledge and change, and that authority belongs to you alone." The wind picked up, swirling leaves around their feet, as the tension in Grace's heart began to dissipate. She had control over her narrative. With each heartbeat, she visualized the potential classrooms vibrant with curiosity, young minds thriving amidst encouragement rather than fear. Suddenly, a clap of thunder rumbled in the distance, a harsh reminder of the brewing storm. It mirrored her inner turmoil, but rather than cower, Grace felt her spine straighten with resolve. She had decided. The confrontation awaited, but now it felt less daunting, like a necessary part of her transformation. "Thank you. I needed this," she whispered, sincerity flowing through her. As she turned to leave, the mountain man offered her a parting remark. "Bridge the gap between who you expect you to be and who you are. The world deserves to know the true you, Grace." Her steps quickened, the forest no longer housing shadows but possibilities. The longer she walked, the more clarity surged within her. But as she prepared to leave the thicket, another voice pierced through the air, this one shriller, filled with urgency. "Wait! You don't understand!" Grace spun around, her heart racing anew. Who else had come to intrude on her moment of clarity? The convergence of emotions, all her fears and aspirations, clashed violently, leaving her to confront a new reality she didn't know awaited her. The voice belonged to a girl, not much older than Grace's students, with wild hair and wide eyes brimming with fear. She stumbled out of the shadows, looking over her shoulder as if escaping something sinister. "Who are you?" Grace asked, her newfound determination momentarily halted by the sudden shift in focus.
I'm sorry to interrupt," the girl panted, her breath catching, "but you shouldn't be here. There's something you don't know." Comforting the urgency in the girl's voice would require a deeper understanding, one built on the very fears Grace sought to confront. "I'm listening. Please, tell me what's wrong." The girl edged closer, scanning the trees before speaking again. "The man you talked to, he's not just a wanderer, he's a guardian of these woods, but—" "Guardian?" Grace echoed, her heart racing with curiosity and a hint of skepticism. "He guards the path between what you want and what you fear, but he has been tainted by his own past. He's more dangerous than he seems," she warned, her eyes reflecting a painful truth. Every instinct within Grace told her to reject the notion, to dismiss it outright. She had just begun to reclaim parts of herself that had been silenced, and yet the unease in this girl's demeanor triggered an instinctual wariness. "What do you mean, dangerous?" "We all have ghosts," the girl continued, stepping back, still glancing over her shoulder. "Some never confront them. They become shadows that distort reality. The woods don't show mercy." Grace's thoughts raced. Could it be that the very confrontation she planned could lead to something darker? "Why should I trust you? I just had a profound conversation with him." "Because," she said, her voice rising with urgency, "what you see and what is true can be two different things. I lost someone to those shadows. If you're going back, you need to tread carefully." The revelation hit Grace with a force she hadn't anticipated. She'd come seeking empowerment, a reclamation of her identity, yet here lay another layer of complexity, one that layered her journey with the haunting specter of loss. "What do you suggest?" Grace asked, an unanticipated edge filling her tone. The fire in her had morphed from determination to a piercing drive. Truth would pave her path forward. "Trust your instincts," the girl urged, taking a step closer, an earnest plea etched onto her face. "But don't forget that there is power in knowing who you are, even more so if you recognize the shadows within yourself. You are as much your own guardian as he is." The wind rustled through the trees again, bringing with it a chill. Grace felt the warding call of her inner fears creeping closer, but in that clarity of this moment, the words twisted into a protective shield rather than a barrier. "I won't back down," Grace vowed, intertwining the strength of the girl's message with her own. "I came to reclaim what's mine. I will learn whatever it takes to confront him and my fears." The girl's eyes brightened for an instant, as if recognizing Grace's resolve, but that flicker faded quickly into a more somber reality. "Just remember, courage comes not from the absence of fear, but from understanding it. You must know what you face before confronting it." Grace nodded, feeling the discourse ignite a spark within her, a daring confusion navigating her onward into complex territory. With the girl's warnings echoing through her mind, Grace knew the storm brewing on the horizon mirrored the conflict she would invoke. Before she could respond, a rustle in the underbrush grew louder, and the shadow of the mountain man loomed near, his features sharpened against the backdrop of the growing tempest. "Grace," he called out with a grave timbre, "you've taken your first steps to maturity, but will you take the next, even if it leads into darkness?" The challenge lingered in the air, thick with impending tension. As thunder crackled above, Grace felt her pulse quicken in response to the impending reckoning. The time had come for deeper truths and confrontations that lay beyond her perceived fears. Grace swelled with conflicted emotions, prepared to uncover the shadows of the mountain man, and with it unravel truths about herself she had yet to face.
Grace faced the mountain man, a figure both imposing and enigmatic, seconds away from a pivotal confrontation. The wind wrapped around her, almost taunting as it carried the tension of decision-making. Every heartbeat echoed with remnants of the girl's warning. Understanding her fears was crucial, yet the darkness seemed all too familiar. "What do you mean by the next step?" she shot back, defiance flaring. Was this the moment she'd been waiting for, or the gateway into a deeper labyrinth of trepidation? The man's presence felt like an unsettling anchor to the chaos in her mind. "You are standing at the intersection of your potential and your shadows," he replied, voice deep and gravelly. "To progress, you must confront both. Welcome them, perhaps. They make you who you are." His words wrapped around her like smoke, igniting questions she had spent years avoiding. What parts of herself had she buried? What ghosts walked the paths of her past, shadowing the woman she aimed to reclaim? "Are you saying I need to accept the darkness?" Her brow furrowed as she considered the implications. She had always viewed darkness as an adversary, a weight that suffocated potential. "Acceptance is not surrender," he countered, stepping closer, his shadow swallowing her whole. "Understanding your fears can set you free. Each fear carries a lesson. Let it guide you, not imprison you." Grace's heart raced as she recalled the girl's words on trusting her instincts. What fear did she face here? The towering figure before her, or the realization that she too had fragments of the very shadows they spoke of? "What lessons?" she asked, challenging but intrigued, an internal dialogue sparking. The mountain man's gaze intensified, as if he could see through her facade. "The scared girl you left behind, the dreams you let fade. Knowing your past will fill the void. It's not merely history, but a source of power." An unexpected swell of anger and hurt surged within her.
How dare he assume he understood her? Yet it struck a familiar chord. The fears she'd pushed aside were not banished. They flickered at the edges of her consciousness, poised like wolves waiting for the right moment to pounce. And if understanding brings pain? She found herself grappling with the churning emotions. What if it only serves to remind me of all I've lost? Pain is a chapter, not the story. Without it, you cannot fully appreciate the moments of joy and growth, he said, weaving wisdom with pragmatism. Grace's thoughts raced between pushback and dawn-like understanding. She had planned to confront her fear of the mountain man as an entity, but perhaps the true challenge lay deeper, embracing her inner complexities, the very shadows he spoke of. "What if I fail?" she whispered, as doubt tugged at her psyche, piercing her facade of bravery. "Then you learn. Failure is not the end. It's an invitation to rise again." His voice softened, a steadiness that could be a balm to her aching spirit. The atmosphere shifted as lightning pierced the clouds, illuminating her doubts like a harsh spotlight. There was no escaping this moment, both fear and clarity coalescing into a decision. "I will not waste this moment," she declared, finding resolve within the tempest of emotion. "I'm ready to face whatever shadows linger, not only in you, but in myself." The mountain man nodded slowly, a flicker of respect shadowing his weathered features. "A wise path, Grace. The woods will expose your truths. Remember, darkness often hosts the brightest revelations." With each revelation, Grace felt her determination surge, forging pathways through her tangled psyche. She sensed the urgency growing, each moment pulled taut like a string ready to snap. The challenge, she acknowledged, was more than a confrontation. It was an awakening. What had she been hiding, not just from the world, but from herself? As the atmosphere thickened with energy, she glanced behind her and saw the girl watching from the shadows, a faint flicker of hope in her wide eyes. In that reflection, she caught sight of something new within herself, a fierce flame igniting.
Let's harness this storm, she declared, a sense of clarity washing over her now. But as she stood, spirit renewed, she felt an unsettling shift in the air, something dark and lurking beneath the surface. A new realization dawned. Confronting the mountain man was only the beginning. She was delving into depths far larger than she had anticipated. In that pivotal moment, as thunder rumbled threateningly overhead, a cold shiver raced down her spine. What awaited her hidden within? What else would rise to meet her? She felt the shadows stir once again, whispering secrets she had yet to unearth. The true journey into darkness and self-discovery had only just begun. The moment hung heavy with anticipation, a charged silence enveloping Grace as she stood resolute, her determination mingling with dread.
A rumble of thunder echoed like the growl of her innermost fears, a reminder that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Her body responded instinctively, muscles tensed, ready to navigate the terrain of both forest and heart. "Show me," she demanded, her voice cutting through the stillness. The words felt foreign, yet empowering, an assertion that beckoned action. For too long she had allowed fate to play its cards without intervention, but there was no more room for passivity. It was time for a transformation. The mountain man regarded her with a gaze that held wisdom and challenge. "Follow," he instructed, turning toward the weathered trees that loomed like sentinels. Grace moved in step with him, each footfall a testament to her resolve, now echoing through the forest with echoes of purpose. As they walked, shadows danced, their obscurities teasing memories she had long suppressed. She could feel fear's grip ease slightly, alongside a whisper of anxiety that lingered in her throat, a nervous anticipation dancing between the memories of her past and the promise of understanding. "Do you know where we're headed?" she asked, her curiosity intertwining with trepidation. The mountain man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he led her deeper into the woods, each step a pilgrimage into her submerged fears. "Sometimes the path reveals itself only after you've walked it," he said, finally, pausing to let the words settle in the space between them. That statement struck harshly against her heart. What a relatable frustration, the waiting, the uncertainty, always hoping for clarity in the chaos. Anxiety twisted within her as the question surfaced. Was she ready for whatever awaited her at the end of this journey? "What if I find darkness, and then I can't find my way back?" she whispered, voice trembling as the weight of potential frustration sank in. The ghosts she had stowed away were heavy, and familiarity in darkness came close to cruel comfort. This time he turned to her fully, the lines of his face etched with kindness and understanding. "Finding your way back isn't the goal. Embrace the darkness as you would a mentor. It is through those shadows you will illuminate the path ahead." The phrase struck her, a crack in her preconceptions. Darkness as a mentor? Could she really shift her perspective so fundamentally? What would it mean to forge friendships with her fears? Before she could explore these thoughts further, she felt a collective shift around her. The trees creaked, and the air became electric. "Open your senses," he urged, a hint of excitement tinging his previously gravelly voice. "The forest holds its own wisdom. Can you hear it?" Grace strained to listen, to feel. Gradually, whispers began to break through the cacophony of her thoughts. Rustling leaves, creaking branches, the distant call of birds. But deeper still, she caught a situation brewing beneath. The pulse of life, vibrant yet chaotic, resonated with her own internal turbulence. It dawned on her. The shadows she feared were not solely her burden, but a shared experience rooted in the authenticity of living. The forest was alive, reflecting a symphony of struggles and growth. Could it be that she was connected to more than she realized? "Do you feel that?" she blurted out, a tremor of hope threading through her voice. "Good," he replied, his expression softening. Understanding your interconnectedness with all things, past, present, and even the unseen, will be your greatest ally. Allow these feelings to shake loose the chains of doubt. As they ventured deeper into the woods, Grace began to see glimpses of herself in the surroundings. Each flickering shadow and sunbeam felt like a welcome invitation to confront not just her fears, but the ambitions that had languished unnoticed. With a renewed pulse of determination coursing through her veins, she wondered, what truths could she uncover that spiraled into even greater depths? Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through, carrying with it a distinct sense of urgency. The atmosphere thickened as a rustle from the underbrush startled her, drawing her gaze to an emerging figure, dark and formidable. Fear shot through her, yet curiously, she found herself compelled to stand her ground. What awaits now? Grace questioned, empowered by the shadows that conspired within, ready to address the mysterious figure who stepped forth from the gloom. In that pivotal moment, she was consumed by the revelation. The darkness she had resisted for so long was not merely to be faced, it was to be wielded. What answers lay hidden within this unexpected confrontation, and what layer of herself would she unveil in doing so? The figure inched closer, revealing a silhouette cloaked in a tattered shawl, weathered skin that spoke of countless seasons spent in the wild. Grace's heart raced, a mix of curiosity and caution compelling her to maintain eye contact. This was no stranger. There was an unsettling familiarity etched into the lines of the stranger's face. "Are you here to confront what you fear?" the figure asked, a low, gravelly voice, yet it resonated within her like a hidden truth. I'm not sure what I'm afraid of," Grace stammered, her voice wavering. The admission exposed a vulnerability she had tried so hard to mask. "Then how can you confront it?" The voice carried a weight that hung in the air, challenging her conviction. A spark of anger ignited within her. "Why are you asking me? You don't know my story. You don't know me." The figure stepped closer, the shawl parting slightly to reveal eyes that shone with an understanding that pierced through her bravado. "But I see your reflection, don't I? The shadows you hide from are echoes of your own making." Grace recoiled, the sharpness of the words digging deeper than any physical threat. With her heart pounding, she felt the urge to flee, but instinctively she squared her shoulders instead. "What do you mean by that?" "Every fear has its root. You can run, Grace, or you can dig. Which will it be?" The uncanny calm of the figure's demeanor forced her to reconsider her choices. Digging. The word reverberated in her mind, each syllable underscored by the memories of every time she had chosen distraction over confrontation. Timidly, she stepped forward. What if digging means revealing things I'm not ready to face? "Then those are the very things you need to face," the sage responded, without hesitation, the steadiness in their tone a stark contrast to the chaos of Grace's mind. "Your journey is not about fleeing or binding yourself to your fears. It's about understanding them and your place within them." It was a daunting proposition, but the challenge struck like a bell within her. Realization dawned. Perhaps it was time to peel back the layers she had encased her fears in, to see them not as monsters, but as teachers. Each piece revealed could be a lesson. As if sensing her shift, the figure took a step back, creating distance filled with possibilities. "I will guide you, but you must choose to listen." Grace inhaled, forcing her breath to steady. "Okay," she said, the word an anchor, grounding her in the reality she had avoided. "I am ready to listen." The figure inclined their head slightly, a gesture of approval. "Then let's start by addressing your darkness. What does it say?" A tumult of emotions surged through her, yet one resonated more than others: failure. The very notion suffocated her. She had lived in the shadow of her own expectations, and now those shadows intertwined with the fears stemming from her ambitions. "It's the fear of not being enough," she admitted, the confession flooding her with a mix of guilt and a peculiar relief. "Ah," the figure began, and there was an unmistakable softness in their voice. "To fear insignificance is human, but do you not see? In confronting that fear lies your greatest potential." The clarity of their words ignited a flicker of courage, the belief that what she could uncover might lead to self-discovery. "Let's delve deeper," the figure continued, kneeling as if inviting her to do the same. "Close your eyes, Grace. Visualize the darkness that surrounds you. What form does it take?" With trepidation, Grace complied, shutting her eyes against the chaos of the forest, immersing herself in the internal void. The darkness materialized as a heavy fog, suffocating yet oddly familiar. A myriad of voices surfaced, moments of doubt, harsh criticisms, and unfulfilled dreams beckoned insistently, demanding her attention. She clamped down on the swell of emotions racing through her. "I don't want to hear them," she confessed fervently, panic gripping her. "You must," the figure insisted, their tone unyielding. "Only through acceptance can you dissolve their power over you." What they said resonated with a truth she could no longer ignore. With her heart pounding rhythmically, she allowed the feelings of doubt to take form, ready to face the discomfort they beckoned. In that moment, amidst the shadows of her mind, Grace recognized an undeniable truth. If she could name her fears, she could also reclaim the narrative. It wasn't a surrender, it was an embrace. As the fogs of despair receded, exhilaration washed over her. This was only the beginning. But was she prepared for what else awaited beyond the surface, within the uncharted territories of her own psyche? A flash of movement caught her attention, and as she opened her eyes, the forest pulsed with new energy. Surrounded by whispers of possibility, she sensed a profound awakening within. What would this journey of self-discovery unearth next? As the pulsating energy of the forest enveloped Grace, she paused to fully absorb the shift within her. It felt as if hidden pathways in her mind were opening, each illuminated by the glimmers of self-awareness she had only begun to understand. The weight of her fears appeared less daunting now, and she found herself surrendering to the moment, embracing the opportunity to map her own psyche. "What else do you see?" the figure prompted, their presence grounding yet ethereal, standing as a beacon of support in the vast expanse of her internal landscape. Grace closed her eyes again, delving into the crevices of her mind. She started to identify the shadows that emerged. The voices had quieted but were still persistent, their echoes morphing into tangible colors and shapes. A large, dark mass loomed before her, pulsating with a rhythm that mirrored her heartbeat. "It's so vast," she whispered, fear creeping back into her voice. "What if it consumes me?" "Confrontation does not mean destruction," the figure replied, their words reverberating with a calmness she craved. Her heart thundered. The prospect terrified her, yet the desire for understanding propelled her forward. It was now or never. Channeling her courage, she stepped toward the mass. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The mass quivered, and she felt a wave of emotions crashing over her, years of disappointment, the suffocating expectations she had internalized. It recoiled, as if her acknowledgement had struck a nerve. Within the storm of feelings, a clear voice emerged, cutting through the chaos. "You fear the judgment of your own heart," it said, each word heavy with painful truths. "I was afraid of not being enough," Grace said, tears forming as the admission rolled off her tongue. "I've let it define me, but now I want to understand." The fog began swirling, dissolving into a series of images, fragments of her life flashing in rapid succession, moments of triumph and defeat, unyielding reminders of the battles she'd fought but often lost. What settled in her heart was the realization that these experiences had sculpted who she was. Those memories are pieces of you. Honor them, the figure urged, forming a bridge between her fears and her growth. They are not shackles, but threads in the tapestry of your identity. A sense of clarity surged within Grace, fueled by a newfound resilience. Pulling herself straighter, she refused to shy away from her past any longer. If I can accept my failures, perhaps I can also embrace the possibility of success, she murmured, the weight of her fears beginning to lift. Yes, the figure exclaimed, their eyes gleaming. In acceptance lies liberation. Your shadows can serve as guides. As the remnants of darkness swirled around her, transforming into vibrant shades of blues and purples, Grace felt alive. The power surging through her veins was exhilarating. She was not just confronting her fears, she was reclaiming the narrative that had long been dictated by them. But as quickly as this revelation arrived, doubt crept in like a thief in the night. Would she have the strength to hold on to this newfound perspective once she returned to the world outside this forest? We've uncovered an important truth, but that's only part of the journey, the figure reminded her, their tone shifting into one of caution. What you rebuild must withstand the winds of reality. Tension threaded through Grace's chest. She had crossed a threshold, yet the path ahead was rife with uncertainty. Questions raced in her mind. How would she implement this understanding in her daily life? What if the world around her didn't change, even though she did? Now prepare to take action, the figure said, their voice echoing through the realization that while the internal work was profound, it was equally important to manifest this change outwardly. Grace nodded, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear at the thought of returning to her everyday life, armed with this new clarity. What should I do next? The figure, eyes reflecting the depth of her own resolve, took a step back. The time has come to face the truth, both within and without. As their words sank in, Grace felt the weight of her journey ahead settle upon her, a daunting task, yet precisely the kind of challenge she was ready to meet. What confrontation awaited her on the other side of self-acceptance? Grace stood at the precipice of transformation, her heart racing in tandem with the gathering storm clouds above. She had unearthed the shadows of her fears, the darkness that had woven itself inseparably to her identity. Yet with this illumination came the urgent imperative to act. The time to mold her own narrative had arrived. Driven by resolve, she recalled the lessons shared by the mountain man and the girl, a blend of tough love and unyielding guidance. They had shown her that embracing her past didn't mean succumbing to it. It meant integrating each fragment into a story of her own authorship.
The fear of judgment that once paralyzed her now stirred within her an indomitable spirit to ascend beyond expectations. With each step she took back toward the sun-drenched clearing, her resolve solidified. The forest, previously shrouded in anxiety and confusion, transformed into a sanctuary of possibility. No longer was she running from the encroaching darkness, she was welcoming new experiences and opportunities. As she emerged from the trees, the fresh mountain air tinged with the promise of rain invigorated her spirit. She thought of the townspeople, those who had gazed at her with disdain or pity. They were remnants of old narratives, an audience through which she could rewrite her story. No longer arcane shadows, they would now witness her evolution. The drive back to town was filled with anticipation, a surge of adrenaline that coursed through her wild and free. Each familiar road sign welcomed her home, yet it felt like stepping onto a whole new terrain.
She envisioned her approach to those who had dismissed her. It wouldn't be a dramatic confrontation, but rather an assertion of her reclaimed identity, a chance to present the true essence of Grace, unencumbered by their perceptions. That evening, she penned a letter, a heartfelt reflection describing her journey, vulnerabilities, and newfound strength. She didn't shield her scars, but instead showcased them as badges of honor. In words, she crafted a manifesto of her transformation, inviting those in her past to understand her renewed purpose. The following day, she bravely ventured into the local community center, a place buzzing with potential connections. Under the weight of self-doubt, she roamed the hallways searching for familiar faces, those who had once known her as a homeless girl lost in despair. Steeling herself, she stepped into the first room where children were engaged in a lively discussion. "I'm here to help," Grace announced, the tremor in her voice fading into resolute confidence. The chatter stilled as eyes turned toward her. "I want to tutor kids, inspire them to find their voice and dreams, just as I've found mine." A wave of silence enveloped the room, pierced only by the enthusiastic response of an eager child who raised his hand, a sparkle of excitement igniting the atmosphere. "Can you help me with math?" he asked, his enthusiasm reigniting Grace's own as she broke into a smile. "I can. Let's conquer it together," she replied, a sense of purpose flickering to life within her. In the following weeks, the community began to take notice. Grace volunteered diligently, teaching, listening to children's dreams, and nurturing their aspirations. Gradually, she felt their validation strengthen her. Each smile, each thank you, another affirmation of her transformation. No longer a pariah, she was carving out her place in this mosaic of connections, her past evolving into a part of her powerful story.
One afternoon, as she wrapped up a particularly engaging lesson on creativity, the principal approached her with an unexpected recognition, a formal offer to lead a workshop for at-risk youth, a chance to embrace her role as an educator beyond just tutoring. The delight that surged within her was profound. She had fought through the darkness to reclaim purpose, and it was blossoming into something tangible. As she accepted the role, Grace felt the culmination of her journey take form. She had integrated her past into present strength, achieving not just personal healing, but also a newfound calling. Her existence had shifted from surviving to thriving. She was a teacher in body and spirit, a torchbearer illuminating the potential that sometimes lies dormant within others. Standing at the threshold of the school, ready to embark on this new chapter, Grace caught sight of the mountains that had been both her crucible and sanctuary. There, in their enduring presence, she found affirmation of her growth. What had once been dark and foreboding spun into a backdrop of hope. It was precisely in her willingness to confront the shadows, the very act of facing herself, that she had conquered her fears, emerged triumphant, and redefined what success meant to her. Now she owned her truth. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these powerful journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about Grace's incredible metamorphosis. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformative conclusion.